You're listening to the Communications Business Advisor Podcast, the podcast for communications professionals in the corporate world who are committed to advancing their work and our field's reputation as critical business advisors that are not only invited to the decision-making table, but are required there. I'm your host, Tara McDonagh.
So I often get asked about the Raise the Tide program. Some people think it's about networking, others think it's about professional development or group coaching. Some others have a vague understanding that it's something for women, but not really sure what it is. So I'm spending some time today talking about Raise the Tide, and I'll be dropping some knowledge bombs along the way. Some of those bombs might have you thinking a little differently, or you might be nodding your head along or even raising your fists. And if that's you, please reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I want to know where you heard your story in this episode. Okay, so first, about Raise the Tide. What people really want to know when they ask me about Raise the Tide is, what is it? Why does it exist? Who's it for? How long does it last? How does it work? You know, the usual 5 W's and H. So I'm going to share all of that with you today. Let's first start with, what is it? Raise the Tide is a total program for women leaders and emerging leaders working in the corporate environment. By total program, what I mean is that it's community, coaching, mentorship, and professional development all in one. It's not one thing, because we're total humans who need all the things to elevate ourselves and our field. Though it would be easier for me to offer one thing, it would be far less successful and not at all what women need. So I went all in on this when I developed it. As you can tell, this is not a light touch or what I call low tide networking program. It's not something you participate in now and then. In fact, it comes with a minimum 1-year commitment. It's not IABC or PRSA or some other clubs or networking groups out there. And they have their place. Like they're valid and relevant and very useful. But this is not even close to the same thing. So let's talk a little bit about who it's for. And to do that, I have to talk a bit about why I created it too. So those are going to go hand in hand. Now, as I mentioned, Raise the Tide is for women leaders and emerging leaders in the communications field, meaning PR, internal comms, executive comms, public affairs, crisis comms, related fields. And those who are working in a corporate or corporate adjacent setting, like either a company, a university, a hospital, or even a nonprofit. Basically, not agency, freelance, or consultant settings. And it's not because I don't love you agency folks. I love you, my friends. Mean it. Love you. Mean it. It's just that agency peeps, they deal with very different challenges than those in a corporate or related setting. And as someone who's worked in both of those settings for many years, I do speak from experience when I say that. So the things that we talk about in Raise the Tide probably wouldn't really help someone at an agency or a freelancer or consultant. I'm considering starting a group for those folks. So if you fit that description and you're someone who might be interested, reach out and tell me, and I'll keep you in mind for when we're ready on my end. But right now, this program is very intentionally for the corporate and corporate adjacent women in this field, particularly those in an emerging leader role or higher. And by that, I mean senior manager-ish level or higher, director, VP, all the way up to the top role in communications in a company. And there's a reason for this too. There are different container groups in Raise the Tide based on the place you're at in your career. Which group you go into has zero to do with your age. So keep that in mind. We have 50-year-old women in the emerging leader group, and we have 38-year-old women in the leader group. It is not about age. I feel like I should say that again. It is not about age. It is also not about the size of the company you work at or the expertise you have or even the experience. I won't bore you with how I match people up with the right group, but there is an art and a science to it, kind of like our entire field. Now, onto why Raise the Tide exists. Well, it exists because I noticed a few things throughout my own career in corporate communications, and then when I started consulting too. I noticed it pretty much in all of my female clients. Overachiever women who were hard workers and wildly skilled, who were not giving themselves enough credit, even when they thought that they were confident, But then they'd also be thinking something was wrong with them if they struggled significantly. I also noticed loneliness, people not understanding them, and frustration with peers and leaders and other functions at times, typically born out of oversimplification of what the true function of what they and their team are working on and what they're meant to be working on, the true value that they provide. Like they might be at the table to weigh in on things, but they weren't always heard and weren't always remembered. What they were saying wasn't always acted upon. And even if they were still struggling with budget or advocacy for the team or feeling like their peers just don't get it. They were feeling alone. Couple this with some differences in how I saw my male clients treating the same issues. Not good or bad, by the way, just different. And how much women blamed themselves or accepted the frustration as fact. And I knew I needed to do something. That's where Raise the Tide started. Many don't know that along with my knowledge and experience in corporate communications, I also studied gender differences in communication back at university, and I never really lost sight of this in my decades since graduation. It became clear to me that this very unique program I was creating was necessary if we have even a chance at achieving this audacious vision of a corporate world that not only invites but expects communications leaders to act as critical advisors, complete with equal share of voice at the decision-making table. And by that, I also mean equal title levels of chief communication officer, salaries that match up with peer-level salaries with that chief title, teams that aren't bare bones but fit the size and need of the company, and so on. So yeah, I do have a degree in communication studies, and I worked in the field for 30 years in PR, public affairs, crisis comms, internal comms, executive comms, corporate comms. But I also studied gender differences in human communications, like that overachiever thirsty for knowledge that I am. And by the way, if you're listening to this, you are probably a fellow overachiever too. So hi there. Picture me waving at you over here. I see you. What I realized was that what I had learned back then at university, and since then in being a bit of a study geek on communication studies and gender differences, what I experienced since then in a corporate environment and what I saw among women in the field was something that was needed to help women advance themselves and this field. Something entirely missing that could be resolved through applying the skills that I learned about how women connect, advance, and thrive in their careers, as well as what I know about how frustrating and misunderstood our field can be when we advocate for it with others. Because advocating for a misunderstood and oversimplified field as a woman is perceived very differently than when a man takes the same action. True story. We're in a field dominated by women. So if we're going to advance our field, we better advance the women in it. And here's the thing. Part of the knowledge bomb I'd love for you to take with you today. Women are told to be different, that they need to change in order to lead. Right around that senior manager or director role, they're told to fundamentally change who they are. Not small things here. I'm talking fundamental personality change. They're told in subtle and sometimes overt ways that what leadership looks like is different, and what got them to the point that they're at, that will not get them any further. They now need to work on executive presence, or influence with authority, or to be more likable, or to soften their hard edges, or to speak up more in meetings, or to not feel the need to speak up so much, or to stop interrupting, or to stop saying sorry, or to work more on being able to speak up on the spot, or all the things that get into women's heads and tell them that they are no longer enough. And what they've been doing is now wrong, and they need to change. And my friends, listen in here. This advice, it's wildly wrong. It is. Most professional development programs out there, I'm pretty sure all of them, they're designed to change you, to tell you what's wrong with you and what you need to do differently in order to get ahead. For women, they're focused on changing the view of how you need to show up as a leader, which by design is set up as how white men lead because that's who historically the leaders in corporate world have been. So we're told to work on certain skills and attributes to change what we do and how we do it to fit some construct of leadership. Again, which is historically white and male. What's worse is the feedback that women are given and how to change is often conflicting. One person gives feedback that a woman is cold to them and that they need to be more approachable. And another is sharing that they're very warm and likable and enjoy the humor they bring, but they need to be more buttoned up. One might say that they need to work on not overextending themselves and have better boundaries. That's what leaders do, right? While their colleague then complains that they don't do what's asked enough, say no too much, and could be a better partner and prioritizing the work that they need from them. One person says they're abrasive and another person says they're a pushover. It's exhausting. It's called the double bind, my friends. That's the term for it. And it's worse than the double standard because with the double standard, you might have to work harder, but you can still achieve the goal. And yeah, this is me dropping some of that gender differences studies into the chat here. With the double bind, there's no right way to win. You're darned if you do and darned if you don't. This is a clean podcast, so I'm going to keep the words clean. Yikes. The double bind here, that can make women feel even worse. Powerless even. So what do? You change systems. You change the perceptions around you. Not yourselves. Change systems, not women. And I'm not talking about some mass overthrow of corporations or something. It's not telling men that they are bad and women are good. That is not this. That is not the thing. That is not what works. In fact, women can perpetuate bias as much as men. So here's what I do mean. I'm talking about accepting that you do not need to change who you are in order to lead. Because the truth is you don't. You absolutely don't. Here's just one way we apply this approach in Raise the Tide. In Raise the Tide, we often talk about how not all feedback is good feedback. Now, I know this is a bit different from what we're all told. We're told that we shouldn't get defensive, that we need to accept feedback as helpful and designed to get us to the next stage in our careers. And I can accept that. I do agree that most feedback is well-intentioned, and we should listen first before determining anything. And yet, I also accept that some feedback is biased. And I accept that some feedback is bull. And I accept that some feedback is coming from a place of projection, well-intentioned, that focuses on the giver, not the receiver. And I can assert that some feedback is delivered in words that do not match with the intention of the giver. And I can know that some feedback is about part of a moment, the thing that gives a sidebar of a story, not the entire story. So instead of accepting every word as gospel and Raise the Tide, we encourage crew members to not sit with it. Instead, we ask that they come to talk about it with someone in the program. Talk with them about the feedback that they've received. Most often, that person is me. Together, we dissect it. We figure out what might be true here and what might be trash. Because some feedback deserves to be heard and can help you grow, and some deserves to go in the trash. And then we move on. Not all feedback is helpful, even when it's well-intentioned. And the women I work with, they're often seeking feedback, so I don't worry about them not being open to listening. They want to do better. Even when they're amazing, they're always looking to improve. Ambitious overachievers alert! Yeah, they like me. Ambitious overachievers. Facts. So in part because of this, they are more likely to be accepting of whatever's shared, even if it's not true or helpful. And then it gets confusing when the feedback feels counter to the truth or states two opposing views. And the way forward becomes wildly unclear. Women feel like it's all on them to figure it out because it's the problem that they need to figure out for themselves, like the superhero they are, which is also not true. So please take away from today, if you've heard nothing else, we do not fundamentally need to change who we are in order to lead. And you do need others in your orbit to help you succeed. Meaningful people. And this is another fundamental tenet to how I set up Raise the Tide. Do we need to learn and evolve and grow? Of course. And that we go all in on. But there is a difference between working on things like being more brave or supporting your team in a different way or advocating for yourself without feeling used car salesy, and fundamentally changing into some construct of what a leader is supposed to look like. Supposed to, here in air quotes. Now, on the topic of community and network, I have to share something important here. Women network differently. We just do. We crave deeper, tighter, stronger, and meaningful connections. And by the way, those are the connections that are proven to make all of the difference in our careers. Yes, there's a study on this too. Those low touch, low impact contacts, that's what I call networking like a man. And I say this with zero shade for it to the men. It works for many men out there, and they should continue to do what works. But that same approach that men take can actually harm you as a woman. Again, I throw zero shade towards the men who can go to a networking event, meet a guy for the first time, and call him the next day for a favor and get it easily. That's awesome. But if you're a woman and you do that, you're viewed wildly negatively. It doesn't matter if it's a fellow woman on the receiving end of that call or not. You just do not network like that if you're a woman. And then if you do, you're viewed very negatively. Again, this is backed up by research. Study geek alert. Sorry, not sorry. So we're told over and over how important networking is, and so we do it. We're sent to some low-touch networking event and told to network the same way it's always been done. And then when it doesn't work for us, we blame ourselves. We think we're doing it wrong. But heads up here, it's not you. It's that you've been told this is how you have to do it, and it's just not. It's how it's historically been done. It's how men do it. But it's not how women network. So no wonder it makes you feel wrong, inauthentic, or unsuccessful. There's a better way. I set up Raise the Tide knowing what I know about how women network, how they build community, how they find space to be vulnerable enough to learn from each other and grow in their careers. Specifically women. Using my knowledge gained at university and my thirst for constant new studies and new data, I set this program up in a way that works for women. And I did it for women in our field because this is the field I love. And I know we have some unique challenges trying to advocate for it when it's wildly misunderstood and oversimplified and hard to prove value of. And. So it's small group by design. It has specific traditions and language. It focuses on specific techniques. It has specific rules and guidelines, all by design. And as the women in the program know, there's a method to every single piece of the madness, even if it's unseen by them. Now, I don't come to a Raise the Tide meeting and school the group on what the double bind is, or how the just world hypothesis works, or why women don't need to stop saying sorry, or how imposter syndrome is BS. Instead, I set up the program in a way I know brings an environment that allows them to gain instead of lose, allows them to be seen instead of blaming themselves for not being seen, to grow in their confidence, even though nearly all of them will walk into the program telling me that they are confident. And they are, but there's another layer here to uncover. And this setup, this Raise the Tide setup, it allows them to be real with each other so that they can learn from each other and from themselves and from me. So now, how it works. This is a big one. How does it all work? I've said this is a total program, right? So part community, part coaching, part mentorship, part professional development. It's all of these things in one program because it takes all of these things to help women advance in their careers, particularly in this misunderstood and oversimplified field. First, when someone's interested, they reach out to me and fill out the Raise the Tide initial interest form, raisethetide.com. If it's a surface level fit, then I'll meet with that person. And if after talking, if she's a fit for the program, then I match her with the right group. She takes a self-evaluation, and it's, not the kind that tests your knowledge of comms. It's very different than that. Then we meet one-on-one to talk about her goals for the program. After the self-evaluation, I have ideas of what these should be, but we talk further to vet them out and make sure that we're both in agreement on them. And then the woman is introduced to her small group container of about 12 women. I set these up intentionally as a small group, and they will not get larger. It is a core part of the program. Each group meets once a month for about 90 minutes on a video call. And you'd think that that time would go by slowly, a 90-minute meeting, but it races by, and most women are really sad to leave. But we also keep in touch between meetings as a group. We do it on a voice and text messaging app that's free for all participants. That is a pretty active place where women share their wins, their challenges, their questions, their struggles. We laugh. We share frustrations. We come up with new languages and traditions. It's a really fun place. Then at 6 months into the program, I meet with each individual one-on-one once again. We reevaluate goals and decide together if we want to dig a layer deeper, replace a goal because it's already been achieved, which, yes, that does happen, or if something entirely new is popping up or we want to shift one just a little bit. I regularly keep in touch with crew members, and that's what participants are called, by the way, crew members, just to make sure that they're supported as they take actions on their goals. And that's where the coaching comes in. Did I talk about mentorship yet? Mentor matching is part of the program as well. And we just underwent a new process with it. And I'm not really ready to share a ton about it, but I know it's going to make some significant moves for women. And all of them can call me both a coach and a mentor too. I'm honored to participate in their growth as members. Occasionally, we host some extra special programming events with guest speakers, and we always encourage relationship building with each other on an ongoing basis, whether it's in the program walls or outside of them. Finally, the Raise the Tide Retreat is a bonus in-person event that I host for groups once a year. At that time, the crew gets together and we do everything from professional development conversations on things like strategic planning and audits and budgeting to team management, managing leaders and whatnot. But we also do deep mindset work that truly makes all the difference. The interesting thing here is that many enter Raise the Tide thinking that they want community and camaraderie, and they do get that, but they get so much more. They also gain so much more for themselves that they didn't even know was something that was holding them back. You can probably tell I'm wildly proud of this program and the women in it and the progress that they've made. If you think Raise the Tide might be for you, reach out on our website. I'll put the link in show notes. One more thing. I call it Raise the Tide because we've all heard that mantra about how a rising tide raises all ships. But in this scenario, in this program, working together, we're the force of the tide raising the ships for our entire field. If this feels like it might be the right program for you, come raise the tide with us. I'm going to end here by having you listen to some women are in the program from their words about what the Raise the Tide is and what it's done for them. And I'm also going to tell you, I'm taking a break, guys. I'm taking the summer off. I'll be back again in the fall with a new season. And until then, please keep advising, guys. Just keep advising. See you next time.
It's so important to have community across any part of our lives, and that's one way that Raise the Tide has had a major impact for me. Having a cohort of smart and accomplished women who truly understand what it is that I do for a living, but who are also separated from my actual job, is a gift I didn't even know I needed. We can share our wins with each other, struggles, aspirations, setbacks, and everything in between from any part of our lives, either personal or professional, and we support each other through it all.
That was one of our Raise the Tide crew members talking about the power of this program for women leaders and emerging leaders working in a corporate or university environment in the field of communications. I created Raise the Tide to help elevate our field and the women in it. It's part community, part coaching, part professional development, and part mentorship. It encompasses all of these things because it takes all of these things to rise in your career. I asked a few Raise the Tide crew members to share what their experiences have been like in the program, and here's what they had to say. What's one major impact Raise the Tide has had on you?
I'm at a time in my career where I'm thriving, I'm ready for more, I'm looking to grow both from a business advisor and personally. And what I will say is I'm not necessarily getting what I need in terms of coaching and growth internally. And that's where Raise the Tide comes in.
Raise the Tide has given me the confidence to go and advocate for myself and never allow status quo and be always pushing for more and knowing your value and your worth and not being afraid to advocate for that.
What's one thing that's been surprising to you about Raise the Tide?
I honestly was surprised by how quickly I felt part of something really unique and special. My Raise the Tide crew is just one of the most supportive, challenging in a good way, just a group of great women really committed to helping each other get better and be there for each other.
Our entire cohort is from all different parts of the country, and I was really nervous at first about how would I gel with everybody else in the group, and would we really get to know each other, and would we really become close? And that has definitely happened, and it's amazing how suddenly they become your biggest group of cheerleaders and your biggest advocates and the ones pushing for you and rooting for you. And that was really surprising to me.
Something that surprised me about being in Raise the Tide is just how much I feel seen. My crew holds up a mirror for me and even helps me see myself in ways that I haven't before. It's extremely validating, and it's a pretty powerful experience.
It's been an absolute pleasure to connect with women who actually get the ups and downs of internal communications and external communications.
What would you tell someone who's interested in joining?
Do it. It honestly is probably one of the best things I've ever done for myself in my 20 plus year career.
I have received such benefit from this group. I cannot actually express it.
To anyone who's interested in joining Raise the Tide, I'd say this is an excellent way to invest in yourself. The return might even end up being well beyond what you might expect. I walked in hoping for some professional clarity, and I've gotten that, but also stayed for the growth and the support and the connection that has come to mean so much to me.
If you're interested in this program, head on over to McDonagh.com and complete the Raise the Tide form. A rising tide raises all ships, but we're not the ships. Together, we're the force of the tide, raising the ships for our entire industry. If you're interested in working with me to advance your work and your team's reputation as critical business advisors, never order takers, check out McDonagh.com. Thanks for listening to the Communications Business Advisor podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a rating or a review. It helps people find us, and we can't ignite a movement without sharing the message. See you next time, where we'll continue to do the work to elevate our field's reputation and elevate the careers of the people in it.